Yo, what's going on, friends and fam? This is Princeton Brown from Sonic Gold Productions, here to always help you guys turn your music into Sonic Gold. And today I want to go over mastering your own productions. So lately, I've been working on a brand new song. I produced it for the artist. I recorded the artist. I vocal produced, edited the vocals on it. I mixed it. My ears and my listening experience has been exclusively within my studio environment here. And I would say this is more of a video for those who are having trouble mastering their records and discovering issues maybe while they're in the mastering process and trying to figure out why they can't get their masters to sound the way that they want them to sound. And partly this is because you are the only producer and audio engineer, the only person that your ears are working on this project. You don't have a separate set of ears. You don't have another mastering engineer, another mixing engineer. Every single step along the process of the way of creating this record has been with your ears alone. And not to say that is a bad thing. There are definitely some benefits to that, because when your ear is so heavily involved in the project itself, that means it also has so much more of your sonic footprint in the record itself, right? You have more of that characteristic of how you hear music within your final production. So that is a great thing. But when you don't have those different perspectives, a mixing engineer makes your record, a mastering engineer to finalize and master your record, when you don't have these different ears, it also can have a diminishing effect where you get to lose sense and touch of what is good and what is bad. For one, you can become very emotionally invested in the record. You can be very emotionally tied to how a certain mix of yours sounds and hits. That may, mask your problem-solving capabilities in determining what frequencies within the master that you need to be affecting and figuring it out. What frequencies need to be changed because you're used to hearing your record in a certain way. But I'm here to give you guys a process that has definitely worked for me in regards to mastering your record that you also produced and mixed. So if you are an artist or if you are a producer and you produce, mix, edit, you completely do the entire record from yourself in your one studio environment, this video, hopefully, as my goal, is going to help you a lot. First and foremost is the mix. Generally, you want to obviously master the best mix that you have possible. And when mastering that mix, the only thing that honestly, truly matters is, does the master do justice to your mix? Is the master better than your mix? One of the simple tests that you can do after mastering your favorite mix is simply just compare the mastered version to a version of your mix where you just use a limiter alone and you try and set the level of your mix versus your master and compare the two. Generally, what you're looking for in the master is it should be more of a pleasing experience to listen to your mix. Sometimes when we mix records, the mix can be polished, it can be great, but I think what sets apart a great mix and a great mix and master is that the master is able to tame certain frequencies, boost frequencies that are the most pleasing to the ear, even add a little bit more energy and dynamic to the overall production through compression or saturation, most likely a soft clipper and limiter situation. That can just allow your song to hit harder, but not also hit harder, but just feel and move a certain way and just move you a certain way. Again, producing the record, mixing the record, all of these things are about a listening experience, of course, but these two processes, the production side of making the beat and producing the vocals, and the mixing side of mixing the song, individual tracks and whatnot, those to me are more artistic processes that you're expressing just your creative freedom and how far you can stretch that artistically. Whereas the mastering process is simply just about how pleasing of an experience is it to listen to this record when you play it. So that's one of the tests that I like to do, is simply just having a limiter on my mix and compare that to the mastered version of my mix. The second thing I've learned in this entire process of mastering my own productions is that generally when you master your own mix, you don't need a lot of processing. You actually want the most minimal amount of processing possible. Okay, why is this? This is because when you have a ton of processing on your master, that may be because you think that a lot of things are actually wrong in the mix, and you're feeling like you have to correct a lot of things. If you feel like you have to correct a lot of things within your master, something is more than likely wrong in your mix. You need to go back to your mix and figure out what you can do to achieve the sound that you're going for. For example, my typical mastering chain for songs that I've produced and mixed is simply just going to be an EQ, a linear phase EQ to be more specific. Definitely a soft clipper, a limiter, of course. And I really like, within Ozone, I really like the stabilizer function. And I really like the imager function. So you're gonna have, again, you're gonna have an EQ, you're gonna have soft clipping, a limiter, an imager just to spread the overall master and make it more three-dimensional. And honestly, those are like the main things. If you're using more tools than those, I would start to consider if the issue is within the mix, and usually it is. Because guys, I recently mastered a song that I produced. I probably did 4 or 5 different versions of this master, and the one that I feel wins out of all of them is the one that actually did the most simple amount of processing. So that is definitely a red flag to look out for. Are you doing a lot of processing on your master bus? If so, you're more than likely going to need to go back to your mix and correct what's going on there. The third thing that I've come to realize within this process of mastering your own productions is what program you export your mix from and mix your song, and actually makes a huge difference in the overall master at the end of the day. For example, a lot of my stuff that I produce, the beats, I do a lot of the beat production and whatnot from FL Studio. And then I'll do 9 times out of 10, I'm doing vocal production in Pro Tools. So sometimes I like to import all the stems into Pro Tools and mix the record. The general wisdom I'm trying to convey here is that every single DAW has a certain quote unquote sound to it. So if you produce the beat in FL Studio, or whatever DAW that you used, for my examples, FL Studio, I would say I generally like to export the mix at the end of the day from FL Studio, because I'm used to the sound of that DAW and how the entire production as a whole is coming from FL Studio, which is where the entire production started from. If I were to export those stems and put those into Pro Tools now, just for example of comparison, Pro Tools to me has much more of a cleaner sound, but this is not necessarily a good thing. FL Studio to me has a warmer sound. It's more full-bodied. Definitely the kicks, bass, 808s, all of those things when you export them from FL Studio are incredible, honestly. You don't have to do much processing at all. Whereas when I mix things in Pro Tools that come from FL Studio, I realize that I have to do quite a bit more processing, especially on my low frequency instruments like a kick, bass, 808, etc. Because for whatever reason, Pro Tools to me just outputs mixes cleaner and not necessarily heavier. So FL Studio to me is heavier, and in general, I like that sound. So for anything that I produce that starts from a FL Studio session, I'll probably grab the vocals that I mixed in Pro Tools and I'll import those into FL Studio, and then I will export the entire mix from there to then be mastered again back in Pro Tools, which I use. So all this to say, just pay attention to whatever platform, whatever DAWs you're using to mix your records, because that is going to change the sound of your mixes dramatically, and hence the master. What's going on, everyone? So I'm going to dive in just to show you guys this session that I have for mastering this song that I produced and mixed. It's called Higher Than Ever by Angelos Music. And I'm not sure if by the time that this video drops, it will be available on all streaming, but that's the name of it if you want to go check it out at a later date. Higher Than Ever by Angelos Music. As you can see here, this is my mastering session. I've done many different passes on this simply because I'm always fine-tuning and just trying to be a perfectionist with my work and just get it the best that I can. Sometimes doing multiple passes and multiple versions of a master is good in a way because it can lead you to knowing for sure which one is best simply by doing numbers. You can compare 5 different versions. We had a version I mastered. Here we had a version I mastered. Here we have the stems that is leading to a master bus where I did a stem mastering kind of situation. The one that we ultimately ended up going with is this yellow track here. And I just want to show you a bit of the processing. I'm not going to master the record because it's already mastered, but I just want to show you a little bit of the processing that I did. So, of course, on my output here in Pro Tools, I'm always going to have a WLM, loudness meter, just to show me how loud my master is getting, and I can show you right now where it's at. If you ever need me, I know you need me. So a solid -8 LUFS. That's generally what I like to go for. So basically, my master chain is very simple, and I just wanted to show you guys what I'm using and how simple it can be. And especially if you are producing and mixing your records and your ears been completely on it, just make it as simple as it possibly can be. So actually the first thing I did to master this record is more or less get the dynamics of it the way that I wanted to. And the 2 dynamic processing units that I have here is a saturator. So I have a soft clipper here. So just doing, basic soft clipping settings. And then that is going into our limiter. And for sure, use oversampling. This is going to help with your low-end translation specifically. I always put the output not at 0, not at 100% 0. So I like to do a little bit less, -10, -0.10, just so we're not right at the peak level of 0. And then just basic settings. Honestly, I got the punchy setting on L2. I like that for this song. So here's that. If you ever need me, I know you need me. With it off. If you ever need me. Much quieter, as you can tell. So this definitely gave it the level that we need and the punch. If you ever need me. Cool. And then basically, I realized that I just needed a little bit more clarity in my master, but I definitely didn't want to get it harsh or anything like that. So I removed frequencies around 20 kilohertz area. So right before the 20 kilohertz area, I wanted to make sure that my high end, all that sizzle in the top end, that can often be kind of annoying in a master and not so pleasing, is removed. And then we also tightened up the low end just by removing anything below 29 hertz. And notice this is a linear phase EQ, which is very important for mastering. You definitely want linear phase EQs when mastering. If you ever need me. But, so here's without it. If you ever need me, I know you need me. And let's put it back in. If you ever need me. So as you can see, it just brought the master to life a little bit, made it a little bit more clear. And this EQ is great because honestly, whenever I boost with this EQ versus many others, it doesn't add a lot of harshness, which is great. A lot of other EQs that I use do add a bit of harshness. Next thing I used was the Brainworks BX Saturator. I just wanted to make sure the low end in this master was pretty present, and I love doing that with saturation. I'm more than likely going to use a saturator on the low end versus EQ. I just think it thickens it, and it's what I kind of want versus just boosting low end. So check this out. If you ever need me, this is the bypass. You can really hear that kick just start to knock a bit more. All right, cool. So then I went into Ozone. And basically, I used the stabilizer on the Pops algorithm. And the stabilizer basically is an infinite array of dynamic EQs, pretty much like multiband compressing kind of situation going on. And you can add the amount, this is basically the dry wet, like the mix knob of this effect. So basically, this is simply controlling the frequencies across your master, across the board, so that it's more in line with the balance and the tonal balance and where other pop records, because I'm on the pop setting, are at. Because this tool basically has analyzed, tons and tons and tons of pop records and has found the balance of where the frequencies lie in majority of those records. So that's why we got this pop setting. So we mixed in a little bit of that, and it offered a little bit more low end punch, a bit more clarity. Check it out. With it off.
If you ever love me, I know you love me.
And with it in.
Higher than ever, ever. If you ever need me.
So as you can see, all of these are moving. All of these are compensating to make the master just move more and fit a frequency response profile that matches more of the top pop tracks that we love to hear. And then the next thing I used was an imager, and this allowed me to get more three-dimensional space. Basically, I'm always trying to make the mid-range frequencies wider in my masters. So basically, check this out. Before,
I know you love me.
After,
Higher than ever, ever.
before,
If you ever need me, I know you need me.
after.
Higher than ever, ever.
So you can see that just made the master just that much more pleasing to listen to, more three-dimensional, more fuller, bigger, all of those kind of keywords. And then the last kind of EQ processing I did here was just a simple Pro Q2 on linear phase, very important. I just felt like there was a little bit of mud in the tonal sound of the master overall. Just a little bit that I just wanted to tame. So I just ducked a little bit of this 146 hertz slightly. And I used a relatively narrow notch to do that because I didn't want to take out too many frequencies. And that's about it. So here's the mix, basically without any of the master processing.
If you ever need me, I know you need me. Higher than ever.
And then here is how the master sounds with all the processing in it.
If you ever need me, I know you need me. Higher than ever.
And again, the reason why this, if you like this record and you like the sound, the reason why this is sounding the way it is and as good as it is not necessarily because of what's going on in the master. It's more importantly what's going on in the songwriting, the production, the mixing, all of those things before it allow me to create a good sounding record in the mastering stage. But these are just some of the very few tools that are used just to make the overall listening experience more pleasing. So the fourth piece of wisdom I'd like to share for you guys in regards to mastering your own productions is master on headphones. And why do I say this? All right. The only reason why I say this, and I know like a lot of people will debate me on this, but if you are producing and mixing and living with your record within your studio space, wherever you are, and you're primarily listening through your speakers here. So I mix and I produce 95% through speakers. I don't use the headphones often for mixing or producing at all. I don't really enjoy mixing on them as much as if I have a good set of studio monitors. But when it comes to the mastering phase, because the headphones offer me a new experience, a new perspective, I really think headphones are important. And the key is to honestly have good quality headphones. I wouldn't suggest mastering, your mixes on headphones that are more or less used for recording vocals, for example. I would look for professional quality headphones, more likely open back headphones that I use for mixing mastering purposes. For me, I have the Olo Audio H4X's, I believe is the model. But I have the Olo Audio mixing headphones, and those are great. I really do love them. They're very flat frequency response. And the great thing about mastering through headphones, mastering your mix through headphones, is that you also eliminate the room. So I'm not listening to how my master sounds within the room. And even though my room is treated, it's not perfect. And there's a lot of you guys, I'm assuming, with studio situations where your room is even less ideal than mine. So when you can master your mixes with a confident pair of studio headphones, this is a plus. You eliminate the room, you hear the mix for just generally what it is, and you're able to just fine tune a lot of the details in your mix that otherwise would be harder to do with speakers, since you've been listening to these the entire 1 month, couple of months, 1 year, however long it's been that you've been listening to the song that you've produced and mixed. It's definitely going to cloud your perspective on how you should master that song, and what the actual problems are in your mix that you need to fix in the master, and what areas of your mix you need to boost and highlight in your master. So master on headphones if you've been listening and producing your track and mixing your track 90% from studio monitors. Another tip that I have for you guys is using reference masters or reference mixes. Although if you download any song, it's a mastered song. So any song that you love, using that as a reference. References can be good, but they also can be very detrimental in the mastering process, simply because you can get into this comparison mindset, and it's hard to compare two different things because they are different in nature. You know, you're not working with the same song and just doing two different masters and comparing them. You're comparing a whole different song with a whole different production, a whole different artist, vocalist, vocal tone, whole different mix, whole different engineer who mixed it, etc. These two things are very hard to compare, but they can be beneficial because at least it can give you an idea of maybe the EQ curve that you should have for your final output of your master. Just the general heaviness of your low end or high end, etc., etc. But I wouldn't rely on this completely. Again, the number one thing when mastering your home productions is, did that master do justice to your mix? Is it better? If it's better, leave it at that, put it out, and let's just be done with it. Because when you're at the mastering stage, we all know, as people who've worked on the song from the beginning all the way to the mixing stage, and now we're on the mastering stage, you can be working on that master forever, just because you want to make sure it comes out perfect and you're just fine-tuning details, and you honestly can just go crazy. So as long as the master is better than the mix, just leave it at that. And honestly, at some point you just got to be comfortable knowing, like, I've done my best, I've tried my best, and this is it. So with all that being said, I hope that helps you. I just wanted to share just some recent knowledge really quick with you guys, because this is top of mind for me. I just recently finished the song today, mastered it, and I've done multiple versions, and these were just some of the realizations that I've come to. They kind of hit me today. You know, it's all of these things that I've been honestly applying throughout my career, but a lot of this hit me today from this previous session because of the amount of different versions of this master that I did. And this honestly is kind of like a reminder to myself, just making this video for you guys here today. So hopefully some of that wisdom helps you guys in your masters, especially when you're mastering your whole entire production that you've been living with for months on to a year or whatever. If you guys have any comments below, comment below, let me know, and I'll try to reply back to you guys and help you in any way possible. If you are someone who is looking to take your mixes to a whole nother level and YouTube isn't doing it for you, check out my mini course on my website called 6 Mix Finalizers. It's a free mini course that I've produced, basically showing you guys 6 processes that I do on all my mixes that you can do as well, which will take your mixes to the next level, whatever stage that they're at. It's gonna take them to another level, and you're gonna just feel more confident in knowing that your mix is completed and finished and ready to go. So if you want to check that out, click the link in bio. It's completely free. for you guys to check out. It's called 6 Mix Finalizers, available on my website. I'm glad to be sharing my journey with you guys and what I learned along the way. And I hope you guys find this useful. Stay tuned, subscribe so you don't miss any of the future upcoming videos and information, tips, tricks, etc. My name is Princeton Brown from Sonic Gold Productions. Always here to help you guys turn your music into Sonic Gold. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.